Hey guys, it's Yorkie here and welcome to the channel for our very first look at the brand new 2023 Ferrari 296 GT3 car that has just arrived with the 2023 GT World Challenge DLC. So here we are then in the car showroom with this new Ferrari, and as you can see, very different bodywork styling compared to the 488, obviously focused on or based off the 296 car that Ferrari have recently released. The front end looks pretty damn cool from certain angles. It looks a bit like a lizard from others with these very aggressive ventilations and kind of fairings over the wheel arch there. Really do like the aggressive aero styling and around the splitter and these the front canards and the grille. Very nice endurance lights as well. Livery isn't too bad. It's fairly very simple. No real sponsors on it. It's just kind of Scuderia Ferrari kind of bog standard livery. Quite an aggressive sort of side skirt there, and then coming to the rear, this is where things feel off and not so great here on this car in terms of styling. I don't mind the rear lights, they look fairly cool, and you've got the twin exhaust there at the back. Diffuser looks fairly simple and fairly basic, to be honest. Nothing too intricate there in comparison to, say, the previous Gen 488. But overall, from, I'd say, the latter third of the car rearwards, just looks out of proportion. It looks elongated and too long. It doesn't. Some of the lines don't really make sense in terms of this kind of coming from the air intake here just before the rear wheel arch. It obviously slopes up, which is quite nice, but then it slopes, for me, too far down on the other side. It just looks very much like an afterthought. Doesn't really look all that aggressive and just kind of looks, yeah, just out of proportion and doesn't look like the rest of the car, which looks really mean and quite aggressive and cool from the front, and then it just, yeah, the back becomes a letdown. This bit here on the engine cover doesn't look too bad, and the scoop down also doesn't look too bad, but it feels like the rear section of the car, from like the rear axle, is too far rearwards. It probably felt like it'd probably be better off being a little bit shorter, but obviously they've tried to, I guess, elongate the wheelbase somewhere along in terms of the car's design. And then the swan necks as well also look very basic and standard, with the kind of verticalness of them there at the main part, the thicker part of the stem. It looks soft. It doesn't look quite as aggressive, and it doesn't really match the front of the car. It's very much a car of two halves, so that's a bit of a letdown for me in terms of the Ferrari styling. Coming to the actual liveries, there's a few here. Obviously, we've got the Scuderia Ferrari one. We've got the AF Course Ferrari, which does look a lot better. Very similar to the hypercar colours. We've got two liveries there with the number 51 and 71 car. We then got Conquest Racing, white, red, and also black. Looks like quite a nice livery there as well. And then Emerald Ferrari Racing, which have some pretty nice colours with a very nice deep blue, different to the usual Ferrari red and yellows that we tend to see. Also some greens that have been used in the past. Number 14 car looking quite nice there, and then the 69 car a little bit more aggressive in terms of its styling, a little bit more modern with the kind of triangular sort of breaking up of the red, sort of some more digital patterns there with some Red Bull sponsoring. So jumping into the car then at Spa, and we'll take a look at the setup real quick with the default aggressive setup. See, fairly usual sort of toe camber settings. Things are a little bit lower down here compared to some of the other cars that we've taken a look at here. Obviously not quite as much toe and camber as other setups, shall I say. On the electronics tab, we've got our usual TC2, goes up to 11 various settings. Obviously 0, you can turn it off there. ABS goes up to 11 as well. And our ECU map is on by default 3, goes all the way up to 12. And again, this is something that I asked Aris about, and he said that the power on all the ECU maps are actually the same. It's just a case of what sort of, effectively, throttle map you want. One, I believe, is a very linear, straight line sort of map, and then you get the more kind of butterfly-esque sort of shaped curve going up to 12, but the default there is 3. Coming on to the fuel and strategy, we shall drop the fuel down as well as the front brakes ready for our run. We shall also drop just a little bit in terms of the brake balance. 7 or so clicks in terms of the anti-roll bars. The front wheel rates, spring rates, we can see go up to 214160 on the front as the maximum, and then 163769 as the minimum. And then the rear is a fair bit softer, going up to 179546 on the rear and dropping down even lower to 122091. Pop that back up. Same anti-roll bars as at the front of the car. Coming to the dampers, very, very similar to the previous generation 488 cars, with not too many damper settings here. Makes it probably a little bit easier to kind of tune. So there's going to be less variation or fewer increments to actually worry about. But yeah, we got up to 11 on the front, and then for the fast damping we go up to 11 as well. That's going to be pretty much all round. Indeed it is. So very, very simple there. Nice and easy to work with. Rear wing goes up to a maximum of 12. Put that back to 7. Ride height goes down to 50 on the rear. I believe it was on 56. So to 75 on the rear. And then the front ride height goes down to 50. 75 is the maximum, but you probably don't want to go any higher than 55 anyway. And then there is no splitter, and we're just going to run here with the default aggressive setup and let you guys enjoy the first part of this lap with just the car sound. So as you can tell, not the most inspiring or best sounding Ferraris that we've heard come out of the Italian manufacturer. Unfortunately, since they've moved away from the naturally aspirated engines in their race cars to turbos, a lot of the sound has been quite muted compared to the lovely European V8's kind of scream that we used to have with the old F430s and 360s and all those great sounding cars back in the day. Nonetheless though, do not let the sound put you off, because this car is an absolute weapon. It is very, very good on the brakes. The car is very, very compliant as well. And around this track it is extremely, extremely competitive. Very, very quick. As you can see from the dash, there's a whole bunch, an array of information that we can see there. On the left hand side, in those blue squares, we've got our tyre pressures. On the right hand side, in the black squares, we've got our tyre temperatures, and there's a whole array of information in and around that as well. Have to hold on a little bit there going through Radeon, as the car does get a little bit light in and around the rear and wants to start to move around and wander a little bit. Cycling to the next page just takes a couple of things away from the dashboard. Otherwise, stays predominantly the same. And then we're back to it again. There's only the 2 pages there. There's not really much difference in terms of those. But looking at the front of the car, good visibility. You can see those aggressive fairings on the wheel arch over to the side, and once again have also adjusted the cockpit position from the default a little bit. I am further back, making me feel a bit more encompassed by the car, and also gives you guys and girls a better view of the internals of the car. Has meant that that wing mirror there on the left hand side has gotten covered up a little bit by the safety net in there, but that really doesn't bother me too much, especially with there just below the apex as we go through Stavolo is the rear view camera, giving you a nice sense of what cars are following in and fairly closely behind you. But yeah, compared to the Porsche and the Lamborghini, I would say that this car is probably in the middle of the 3 in terms of driver friendliness and difficulty. As I mentioned, it's very, very good on the brakes compared to other GT3 cars. So it's definitely one that you're going to be able to make overtaking moves with. If you are a bit of a Danny Ricciardo aficionado and like to make a deep lunge, just don't do it from too far back and dive bomb people. And then in terms of the car's rotation and grip, as I said earlier, it is very, very compliant. Coming through here, it is a little bit sketchy. Going up over the crest there of Radion, the rear end is wanting to get light. So you do have to be fairly minimal with your steering inputs there to keep the rear end in check, and obviously make sure that you're not going to swap ends coming out over the top of the hill. You can see the car just wants to do exactly as you tell it to. There's a bit of rotation as you get harder on the throttle coming out the exit of the corners, but otherwise it's very, very calm and very, very subdued, especially in comparison to the Porsche. It's certainly a bit more aggressive than the Lamborghini though. Doesn't have quite as much understeer in it, and of course this is with the default aggressive setup as well. No doubt if you go ahead and make changes, especially dropping the front ride height and putting a little bit more rake into the car, you'll probably find that the car is a little bit more aggressive than what it is here, but it's feeling very, very nice through the corner and quite playful, as you saw there. Turbo spooling up and giving a slight kick of oversteer. Had some understeer there in the mid corner and around the apex, but that very quickly got solved with some throttle. And yes, this car does feel pretty damn quick. Certainly see it being probably the most popular car out of the 3. A lot of people liking it and driving it. Just hope that you don't get stuck behind one and you get put up with looking at a fairly ugly rear end. See those traction slip lights just briefly flashing up there. So we're going up through Radion. Hard on the brakes. Down through the gears. Probably a little bit too late on the brakes there. Car got unsettled as I was straddling the curve as well. I think it bottomed out slightly. Using all the available runoff. Now coming on down the run to pull on. Fourth gear, turn the car in. Didn't really make the apex, just costing us a little bit of time, but we got to the apex of the second corner quite nicely with these updated physics. Now coming through Piff Paff. Getting a little bit of oversteer there, just like we had on the previous lap. Very nice on the exit though. Now through curve, off right. Able to quite comfortably keep the throttle completely flat out. Blanchimont is very easily flat, just open up the corner as much as you can for yourself. Nice and smoothly through. And it's just braking for the bus stop. Running a little bit deep there, missing that first apex, but never mind. Accelerating hard. Hearing those turbos spool. And across the line for a 2:19.0. And that is a look at the new Ferrari 296 GT3. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you've got any comments or questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below and I'll get back to you. Otherwise, please check out the other videos of the other two new cars that have come with the 2023 GT World Challenge DLC. But otherwise, please consider subscribing. And until the next video, thanks for watching, have fun, stay safe, and take care.